The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.
You know, folks, I've never been satisfied with the answers we get over why the DHS, the Department of Homeland Security, has purchased so many bullets. I'm not a conspiracy nut. I'm not into the black helicopters. I'm not into any of that. But it would seem there'd be a little bit more interest in getting to the bottom of this, rather than a couple of statements put out by somebody and just regurgitating them. And I would think the conservative media would want to know more about this. It's not like Obama's birth certificate, birthers, that sort of. No, this is something that is occurring, and that from my background, having served in the Reagan administration of the Justice Department, I am not comfortable with the answers we receive. They don't seem right. And I'm not alone. Investors Business Daily wants some answers. CNS News wants some answers. Members of Congress want some answers. That's all. Investors Business Daily says today that 15 members of Congress have written a letter to the Department of Homeland Security demanding to know why the federal agency is buying so many rounds of ammunition. And they write, we'd like to know too. Freshman California Republican Doug LaMotta and 14 of his House colleagues, notice Boehner never is curious, who signed on to his March 5th letter, are asking the Department of Homeland Security to explain why it's buying 1.6 billion rounds of ammunition of various calibers. They're not happy with explanations provided so far in the press by lower-level officials, answers meant to debunk unfounded concerns. As we have noted, DHS has been buying lots of ammo, enough for one calculation to fight the equivalent of a 24-year Iraqi war. Peggy Dixon, spokeswoman for the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center in Glencoe, Georgia, told the AP that the training center and others like it, run by the Homeland Security Department, use as many as 15 million rounds every year, mostly on shooting ranges and in training exercises. Now, the massive purchases are said to be spread out over 5 years and due simply to the best practice of saving money by buying in bulk, what comes down to 5 rounds of ammo for every man, woman, and child in the U.S. That's a lot of practice and training, writes Investors Business Daily. A good portion of the 1.6 billion rounds of ammunition are being purchased by Immigration and Customs Enforcement, the federal government's second largest criminal investigative agency. Yes, that's the same ICE that is releasing detained criminal illegal aliens onto our streets because of the sequestration cuts. Jonathan Lasher, the Social Security Administration's Assistant Inspector General for External Relations, explained the purchase of 174,000 hollow point bullets by saying they were for the Social Security Inspector General's office, which has about 295 agents who investigate Social Security fraud and other crimes. When they say they're cracking down on waste, fraud, and abuse, they apparently mean it. But as former Marine Richard Mason told reporters with WHP-TV News in Pennsylvania recently, hollow point bullets, which make up the majority of the Department of Homeland Security purchases, are not used for training because they're more expensive than standard firing range rounds. We never trained with hollow points. We didn't even see hollow points my entire 4.5 years in the Marine Corps, Mason said. And folks, personally, and it's just anecdotal, I don't train and practice with hollow points either. With hard jacket bullets. Now, I have hollow points for protection, but I don't do target practice or training with them. LaMotta offers one theory that's less sinister than some, that the federal government is simply trying to corner the market on ammo and restrict what's available to the American people as part of its gun control efforts. He said the extraordinary level of ammunition purchases made by Homeland Security seems to have, in states such as my own, created an extreme shortage of ammo to the point where many gun owners are unable to purchase any, LaMotta wrote in the letter. And by the way, there are ammunition shortages, even at places like Walmart. While lower-level officials talk to the press, Secretary Janet Napolitano apparently doesn't want to tell Congress herself the reasons for these purchases. Quote, they have no answer for that question. They refuse to answer that. Congressman Timothy Hulskamp, our buddy, Republican Kansas, told reporters recently, adding, "They refuse to let us know what is going on, so I don't really have an answer to that. Multiple members of Congress are asking those questions." Homeland Security has acquired a number of mine-resistant armored protection MRAP vehicles, which have been retrofitted for possible service on the streets of the U.S. They were formerly used for counterinsurgency in Iraq. These vehicles are specifically designed to resist mines and ambush attacks. As we noted in recent editorial, DHS is also seeking to acquire 7,000 5.56 by 45 millimeter NATO personal defense weapons, also known as assault weapons when owned by civilians. If there are plausible explanations for all this, some congressmen would like to hear them. Maybe DHS can answer Congress's questions in a series of bullet points. This is an editorial in the highly regarded, one of my favorite editorial pages, Investors Business Daily. I gave my own thought as to why they might be collecting all these rounds. And boy, was I attacked all over the media like it was some kind of crazy idea. And that is because of the potential that exists for violence when a society and an economy unravels, and the training and practicing for that possible event. In other words, riots. You know, we have had riots in the streets in this country before, but mass riots. That's what happens when a nation unravels. That's what happens when an economy collapses. I don't know. But this is interesting. On top of that, from CNS News, Gregory Gwynn Williams, Jr., the nationwide shortage of ammunition has left many police departments scrambling to get their hands on the necessary rounds, with some even bartering among each other. Police Chief Cameron Arthur of Jenks, Oklahoma says, quote, "Ammunition and assault weapons in general have skyrocketed. In addition to the fact, not only is it a lot more expensive, but the time to get it could be 6 months to a year, or in some cases even longer." The police chief says he's waiting on an order placed last October, and many departments have begun to trade and barter with each other because of the high demand. He said most police departments are having a very difficult time getting the necessary ammunition for handguns, shotguns, and especially rifles. With the delay in ammo, some departments are limiting the number of rounds they carry in their handgun because of the shortage of ammunition. We get to the point where it's difficult to have enough ammo to train and also equip the officers. Chief Pryor of Rollingwood, Texas, says of the shortage, "We started making phone calls and realized there's a waiting list up to a year. We have to limit the amount of times we go and train because we want to keep an adequate stock. Nobody can get us ammunition at this point," says Sergeant Jason LaCrosse of the Bozeman, Montana Police Department. LaCrosse says that manufacturers are so far behind, they won't even give them a quote for an order. "We have no estimated time on when it will even be available." And it goes on. The Hamilton County Sheriff's Department, sheriff's departments, police departments all over the country having difficulty acquiring ammunition for the most basic weapons. Police Chief John Mayberry in Marionette, Wisconsin, ammo's expensive and a lot tougher to get. People don't have it in stock, and it's back-ordered. Menominee Sheriff Brett Botbull agrees. We're looking at a 4 to 9 month wait. Florence Police Department's looking for some help in filling its clips, says Chief Tom Zielinski. And it goes on and on. And yet the feds seem to have no problem getting all the bullets they need, hollow point or otherwise. These are legitimate questions, and I'm not satisfied with the answers. No, I'm not looking at conspiracies or anything else. But how about an answer? And those of us who are asking questions, you know, it would be nice if we had more support than these dismissive, condescending attitudes from people who've never owned firearms and never will own firearms. This is an unusual, massive amount of ammunition for a domestic agency to have. And these congressmen have a right to have some answers. And if the answer is simple, then give them a simple answer. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
The only people who don't want to disclose the truth her people with something to hide.